So, hey everyone, this is the SIG-Auth meeting for November 9th, 2022. I believe due to holidays, this is the penultimate meeting of the year. So, yay, yes. Shall we get started? We have some stuff about conformance. We have folks on the call talk about this. I think I see you right
now. Hi, morning. It's the first time that we attend the SIG-Auth meeting. I've put the thread in the Slack channel. Mo, thanks for proposing that we make RBAC conformance. So we'll make a note. There's plans for next year to look at that. So basically, there is two endpoints remaining that under auth that needs conformance test. And Tim Allclear gave us some nice feedback on that. If you click on the link to the conformance meeting, you'll see his full comment there, suggesting that it would be hard to make a proper test without RBAC. So we would appreciate some feedback on, is it viable to test? How would we test? At the moment, we can't really discuss because we haven't dug into it. We just thought, as there's little time left in the year, let's join here, get some thoughts. So when we do have time, because there's only 10 endpoints, and as John said, nobody should own the endpoints of shame right at the end and be the only ones not tested by KubeCon next year. So we're here to get help.
So I think it might help. I don't know if everyone here is already familiar with what conformance attempts to test, but my recollection is that it primarily checks to make sure the endpoint is accessible, that it returns a proper result, but it is not there to exhaustively test every plausible category of return, right? So if you were to be able to see a successful subject access review, one that said you're allowed and one that said you were denied, would that be enough for your purposes? And that was directed to Rian.
Normally it should be yes. It sounds about right. Normally what is making your endpoint conformant we leave to the SIG. So we normally take the endpoints to the SIG and say, how would you feel about taking into account, as you said, you just need to prove that the endpoint is actually doing what you expect it to be doing. And not, you're right, not every scenario. And if RBAC is required for the thing that the SIG requires to be tested, then it wouldn't be eligible because RBAC is not eligible, so we can't include it in the conformance project.
I don't know that I think it's strictly required. It seems as though you could write a conformance test that used a service account, attempted to take a particular action, hopefully managed to get a not 403, or even if it did get a 403, that would be okay, ran a subject access review and made sure that it got the same result, right? So that if you got a 403 from the server when you tried to read the default namespace, and then you ran a subject access review for the same user, you should also get a 403. That would seem like we could expect it to work regardless of the authorization mode you used.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I would probably make a read request so that you take custom admission stuff out of the equation, because with reads, only authorization is in play.
Okay, yeah, if that's acceptable for the SIG to only do it that way, and we bypass the requirement or don't go for anything that requires authorization, that would actually be a good solution for us.
The endpoint that you're testing is actually one that says essentially run an authorization check to see whether this user is allowed to take this action. So there's no way to avoid an authorization check in there. The key point is, do you have an authorization check that matches the reality of what happens in your cluster?
Okay.
So are we okay not knowing if it's like going to be a positive or negative test, basically. Like I see what you're saying, David, that if you say, assuming ignoring cache inconsistency for like some order of seconds, like if I try to get a namespace and it says no, and then the cluster admin does a subject access review for me, and it also says no, then yeah, it's working. They're doing the same thing.
Yeah, because otherwise we're making conformance claims about how you have set up authorization rules in your cluster. We're saying you can't be conformant if you allow service accounts to get config maps. I don't think we want to say that.
Right. Is there any, like, I like the suggestion, David. I think it's a good approach. I was just curious if there was any other nuance to try to get basically both positive or negative, or is it just kind of that's the bit that is kind of the part that right now we're saying isn't part of the conformance.
I think I'm okay with it, being either positive or negative, right? Where you either get allowed or not, that doesn't matter. You just have to match. I think that fulfills the goal of, is this endpoint doing what it's supposed to do?
Okay. It seems fair.
Thank you. That sounds very, very workable. So for those that do not know our approach, so what we normally do, we go back to the test repo, bring up the things in the way that we think we should test it, and normally run it past the SIG, get some feedback, comments, and once everybody's happy with that, we make the E2E test and send that again this way for the SIG to review. And once the review has been approved, in 2 weeks of flake free, we will promote it. And we hope to have that early next year somewhere and close this out before KubeCon North Amsterdam. Thank you very much. That's really appreciated. Stephen, any questions from your side about this?
No, at the moment, I'm pretty happy about the feedback, and looking forward to getting into giving an initial test and seeing how much needs to be adjusted when we get to it early in the new year.
Just as a quick question, in a conformant cluster, you can't disable service accounts, right?
I don't believe you can. It used to be the case you couldn't even start a pod without one, but
No, there are existing conformance tests that ensure that service accounts exist and service account tokens get injected into pods and work. Like we already run those tests and they have to pass.
Okay, yeah. But, I mean, that makes sense. You're not going to have a very useful Kubernetes environment without them. Okay, so yeah, so we can guarantee service accounts exist and auth-n works for them, and then we'll just check that auth-c is consistent for them. That will give us a good feels for the API. That seems nice. That seems like a pretty good approach. Anything else from you guys on this one?
That's it. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. We'll swing back when we have something to show.
Cool.
Thank you.
Let's see. By any chance, David, do you know if Daniel's coming today?
I do not. I guess I'll go ahead and nag him. He's one more person in advance, right?
Yeah. All right. But this person already said that they're not going to be here today. Does anybody have
he missed his
context?
chance then.
Does anybody have any context on this one? This is like the first I was hearing about this. Maybe they shared it and I missed it.
I think Tim Auclair does, who's also not on the call.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe we should just treat this as an announcement and then discuss it in an upcoming meeting when we have people with context available. Yeah, just the general gist of it is to break up the break up the verbs that we use on the kubelet APIs so that like you can give reasonable access to subsets of the kubelet API. But yeah, let's discuss in a follow-up.
Are you familiar with this, Mike? I did skim through it, and I was wondering if now was actually a reasonable time to produce an API that was more closely shaped to what the QAPI server API looks like, to provide a more natural mapping, since now is the point when someone's trying to get trying to reuse the authorization checks that we have today.
Yeah, I unfortunately am not very familiar at all with it.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that is a good point. We have talked about doing something like that for a very long time.
Yeah, there was just no benefit to it before, but now if we're
Right.
trying to align to, you know, a more detailed, what do we map verb resource group to? Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would,
I'll drop it on the doc.
yeah, drop it on the doc and we'll have Vinayak and Tim reply.
Micah is here.
Yeah, just a quick question on this. Mostly this might just be my lack of understanding. Last I knew that the kubelet API is like unspec'd, like formally, like there's no, yeah, it's not a, there's no stability guarantees around it.
Is it part of conformance?
To my knowledge, it is not part of performance.
No, it's explicitly not part of conformance. Like conformance talks to the API server, not to kubelet API endpoints. So
Okay.
the kubelet API is an implementation detail of the API server to the kubelet currently, as far as the like official project stance. There are obviously other things we talk to the kubelet directly that we would not try to break, but conformance doesn't make any promises about it.
Yeah, so I guess that, yeah, I just am wondering, like, if we're adding authorization, do we need to also have like better stability guarantees around this too? Or maybe that doesn't have to happen first, but
I think it's pretty difficult to describe how a user can expect authorization to work without knowing what endpoints are actually there.
right, exactly.
Yeah, I suspect like many things, when new keps get written for new features, the bar is very high now, and we will ask these questions, like, and basically kind of force it to be that way. Yeah, because as David said, how would you auth see an API if you have absolutely no idea what the shape of the API is? Okay, cool. So I guess people should read this, and if you have opinions, share them. I will be curious to understand if this makes some of this less, like, I'd be curious if this could make it to conformance as a thing. Let's see. All right, so I assume we did not get Daniel. I don't see Daniel. Okay.
I do not see him.
All right, cool. I guess we can look at flex and test grid and have a short meeting.
Just as a note, the triage board is, I think, only showing up to October 30th. So unless that got fixed like in the last day, this is a week old at this point.
Okay. It's unfortunate. Why does the service time discovery one like always show up in this board for us? Though I am seeing stuff about nonsense. I think Jordan's comment holds, because I don't see any date within November. Lots of things failed. Not just. That doesn't look like our fault. Okay. Maybe it's not our fault. Might have just been. Nish, why is secret store driver have a big scary mark?
There's one job that's failing. So we have image scan for CVEs, and then the latest kubectl binary we are using has 2 CVEs that will be fixed in the next release. So after that, that job should start passing.
Okay. Does that cover all of the scary?
Yeah, we have the same job for pre-submit and periodic. So that's why it's showing as failed for both.
Okay. Makes sense. Right, so that's being taken care of, and this is apparently happy. Okay, I can maybe quickly look at one of these other service count things, see if it was our fault. Probably not, because hundreds and hundreds of other tests failed. All right, I'm going to say that that's fine, unless someone feels very strongly about trying to spelunk through a bunch of test grid right now. Let's see. Anyone have anything they want to talk about? You got 40 minutes, so you can have 40 minutes back. And I will send out cancellation for next SIG-Auth meeting because it's like Thanksgiving, so I don't expect anybody to show up. The meeting after that is almost certainly our last meeting for the year because then we're right by Christmas. So we have one meeting left in this year. Let's talk now.
Do you want to talk about any of the stuff that got completed for 126? Maybe give a update on the KMS stuff.
Let's see. For KMS, we got it so that the encryption config, by we I mean Nilek, got it so that it will reload. But as we went through the process of doing the wiring, it was very hard / technically impossible not to break the existing health endpoints in some way, shape, or form to make while keeping other stuff kind of sane. So like the API server wiring doesn't allow you to have dynamic health checks, which makes sense because why would you? But each KMS has a health check associated with it directly today. So we ended up having to put that behind the flag. So that flag is wired in, and so if you set it to true, in that case, we'll collapse your health checks down to a single one that is basically multiplexing across all the KMS plugins that you have configured. But otherwise, nothing really changes other than now if you change the file on disk, it'll reload for you. We have some follow-ups left, like today when it reloads, it will lose the deck cache. But we'll hopefully fix that up in 27, so that way it'll be like reload with like 0 cost instead of like kind of an annoying cache loss. Let's see. Otherwise, Rita fixed custom resources, so now they can be encrypted at rest. A bunch of wiring got cleaned up, so that's nice. It should be pretty easy to change things now because everything uses the same path, which is nice. Let's see. Anish, Rita, am I forgetting anything about KMS?
I think apart from that, we tightened the validation in a couple of places, like in terms of names. And then like one thing we realized was we allow duplicate KMS config names. So we tightened that for V2. And then if hot reload of encryption config is enabled, we also do the same validation across V1 and V2. So I think that, but more, do you want to talk about the API machinery gaps that we depended on?
Right. So the API server identity stuff, Andrew, Kim, I think finished the work to get that promoted to beta. But we did not get to the storage version of this release. Because kind of KubeCon took the last bit of time. I had to kind of look at that. But I can work on that in 127. I don't think it'll be too bad. I talked with David some, so I have like a better sense of actually what's necessary there. So those are in flight. I'm excited for the API server identity stuff. Um, we had some good discussions with folks in SIG API machinery, and it didn't end up being a bunch of like many changes, but I think what we landed on was pretty nice. So I'm happy with that. We did not land the cluster trust bundle stuff this release. We just kind of ran out of time for API reviews and stuff. Let's see what else was there. Am I forgetting things for SIG-Auth?
The self-subject attributes. And
Right, that was so early in the release that I'm forgetting about it.
Yeah, it just barely missed the previous one, but it did land this time.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. We spoke about that at KubeCon. I fully expect that to have no problems graduating, mostly because, well, I don't know what else it would do. I guess since Jordan, you're here, did we figure out the key encipherment stuff for CSRs?
The PR got stuck on some test issues. I don't think, yeah, the PRs didn't land for 126, so we'll pick that back up in 127.
Okay.
Yeah, the one got stuck and then it got split sort of at the last minute and got, yeah, just wasn't review time.
Okay.
It wasn't something that Auth folks worked on. The API machinery folks really worked a lot on it, but the cell-based validating admission alpha merged. So as people who recommend people run like admission webhooks for various and sundry things, I'm really excited to see that start to get put in as a in-tree way or non-remote way to do custom policy. So just playing around with it, it feels like magic. It's like, oh, I just write a config and then I get admission and I don't have to maintain a webhook, and it's awesome.
That's super cool. Yeah, I'm very excited about that. So I'll be curious to see how far we can take that API. I did talk to Joe some at KubeCon, so I'm excited to see what's possible there. Let's see. I'm trying to remember on the legacy service account token stuff, Jordan. I think one part of it went GA, right? But there's like 2 other feature dates I'm blanking on right now.
Yeah. So the bit where we stopped auto generating, that went to GA. We're not locking it to GA until the first release where we had it is the oldest one in support. We just want to give as much time as possible for people to encounter it in their clusters and react to it and raise issues before we actually lock it. But that was just turning off the auto generator controller. So that is as stable as it's going to be. We'll leave it unlocked until 124 is the oldest supported version. The second part was beginning usage of auto-generated tokens. And so that went in as alpha. And then the last part is cleaning up unused auto-generated tokens after a long expiration period. I think we're talking about like a year, something like that. If they haven't been used in a year, then maybe they're fair game to clean up, but that hasn't been implemented yet. So that'll be queued up for 127.
And that last one is dependent on the middle one, right? Because the middle one.
Yep. The tracking has to show itself stable and graduate, and then the cleanup part, which uses the tracked information, will come after that.
This has got to be the longest kept ever.
I mean, the thing that's sitting underneath every service account. Yeah, there's a reason we went slow on this, and I think the fact that we were able to swap out the time-bound, pod-bound tokens without, there were a few bumps, but largely it was a smooth rollout. I think we're looking for the same thing here for cleaning up the old ones.
Yeah, they're all small as long as the bump didn't happen to you. There was was one other thing I wanted to mention since I see Krish on this call. It happened this year. I did the review for the Q barback proxy and came back with a list of like, I think this needs to be updated before we accept the project. And I know that that has made progress. I don't believe it is yet done. So once my list is done, it'll be time for a rescan and hopefully sometime next year, ready for that second set of eyes.
Yeah, so sadly I'm super busy with downstream. Then the Kubernetes proxy got a bit on hold, and then the key management topic started to get how do you say attraction, not speed, rotation, the momentum. So there are quite a lot of topics to work on, and I'm kind of DDoSed by that.
At least we're all busy, right?
Indeed.
Okay, cool. I'm glad that's going. And let's not lose it this time, because I think we like lost it like once or twice in the past. So
no, definitely not. It's quite high on my priority list. As soon as we reach the Christmas season, I hope to finish the last parts of it.
okay. Let's see. So the structure OIDC config stuff didn't make it. Like the KEP didn't make it to implementable this release, but like Jordan, you and I should probably see if we can hammer out the questions we had among each other and see if we can make that one thing.
Yeah, I kind of lost track of that. Did it come back with responses to the questions we asked? I couldn't remember. I think I did a review after the KEP deadline, or it was right around the KEP deadline, so it was clear it wasn't going to make the deadline for the 126. So I kind of lost track of where it was at.
Yeah, I think I responded to most of the comments on there, or Max did, to kind of explain some of the reasonings behind the APIs that didn't necessarily immediately make sense on the first glance. So, but yeah, I think we can at least get the KEP sorted out in 127. On the structured authorization config, I think the two open questions are API server to webhook authentication and cell-based filtering. Though I did talk to Nehruun at QCon, and he realized that the cell filter is probably not that big of a deal because the input is static. So I think that part was clear, but I think we still got to figure out what we want to do for opt-in to webhooks. Let's see. Client exec proxy, we did not make code progress on, but I know, Mike, you have like 2 PRs open to like do some speedy surgery, which looks real exciting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to implement that without, and also include support for the speedy stuff without a little lift of the speedy client side support. So started to work on that.
Yeah, those look really good. I'm a big fan of PRs that just delete thousands of lines of code. Like, yeah, we just don't need that. And tests still pass. I don't know how good our coverage is of like hot exec and hot proxy and CI, but like,
yeah, I will work on the coverage and get back to you.
Okay, cool. We did sort of just talk about fine grained qubit stuff. So, okay, I think that's what we got. I don't see anything else unless anybody else wants to talk about anything. We can give it all back 25 minutes and see y'all in what, a month. The last meeting with you. Cool. Thanks for hanging out, y'all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.